I am standing in the cider house of Portland Cider Company. I'm here with Jeff Parrish, and Jeff is the owner. And first of all, I'm thrilled to be here and find out more about this great product. But I think the first thing that I want to ask you personally is, I've actually heard people ask for cider beer. That really doesn't exist so much, does it?
No, it doesn't.
So tell us the difference.
You know, I think that's a function of the fact that cider is very new to the general public. Cider is much like a hybrid of beer and wine from the production standpoint. More like wine in that we're taking fruit juice and we ferment it like a winemaker ferments grape juice into wine.
Yeah.
People associate it with beer because it's closer to the beer drinking culture than it is the wine drinking culture.
Okay.
And from a manufacturing standpoint, there's things we do with cider that's very similar to the finishing of beer that a brewer does. And we see that in front of us here.
And by saying, you mean you add things like different flavors, different things like that to it?
Well, sure. We what's called back sweeten occasionally.
Yeah.
We some of us dry hop our cider, and so we do. We add other ingredients to create a finished product, and we have a lot more flexibility in the drinking culture to do that, unlike a winemaker does.
So there's similarities, but then there's some real differences, and here we are in the cider house. So let's just start from the beginning. What would you do? What's the first step you go through?
So the first step we go through is we take in fresh apple juice. We get our juice from a local company in Hood River, and it's fresh pressed from Oregon and Washington apples. We bring that into this tank here behind us, and we pitch a yeast. And the yeast consumes the sugar, turns it into alcohol. In that process we call fermentation.
Okay.
That's the first process. That is exactly what a winemaker does. Particularly like a white winemaker, for example, because we don't have apple skins, we don't have other things in that fermentation tank. It's just fresh pressed juice.
Okay. And then after that is done, I'm sure there's a time frame of that process.
Sure.
Then where does it go?
So we get done fermenting it, and it varies depending upon cider making.
Sure.
You know, here at the Portland Cider Company, we take that fermented apple juice, we filter the juice, which removes any residual yeast cells in it for the most part, and then we store it, and that's sort of a maturation period.
Okay.
And it varies depending upon the juice that we fermented.
And then so this big white tube here, this is the storage basically.
This is a storage, sort of a maturation tank, I suppose. Yeah. And then out of that is where we begin the blending process to create the different types of ciders that we release.
And then that is what these huge tanks are for?
Correct. And then that's where sort of we get into more of the brewery realm. I mean, these are conical bright tanks, which are designed to hold pressure, and we blend into them, and then we force carbonate the cider before we put it into bottles and kegs. And that's where it really kind of becomes more like what a brewer does.
Okay. And now, that's all fascinating, but now we're going to take a little walk into their tasting room, a beautiful room in and of itself, talk a little bit more about wonderful cider. Let's go over there now. So now, Jeff, we are in really a beautiful tasting room, and what one are you going to be pulling here?
We're going to pour our sort of sweet cider here.
And I have to say that I'm going to taste this, of course, but I think a lot of people are intimidated by ciders. They might have tasted one, maybe it wasn't done well, or it had flavors they didn't care for. I'm going to tell you that I've heard this one is a great one to start on, so I'm going to give it a shot.
Sure. Well, this is our entry-level cider.
Oh, wow.
We blend it with a lot of fresh apple juice. It meets the expectations of a novice cider drinker because
it tastes like apple cider.
Sometimes people are surprised to know that there's actually alcohol in there.
Wow.
But it is an entry-level cider. It tastes like apples. Most folks who haven't tried hard cider expect it to taste like apples. And so that's why we blend that the way we do, and it's our best seller.
Oh, it's absolutely delicious, but that begs the question to me, let's go over some of these that you have listed up here. What are they?
Sure. So we have 3 blends of apple. That's our kind of dry, our sort of sweet, and then what we call our happy medium. They differ really in how much residual sugar is left over.
Okay.
The kind of dry is just like you'd expect, like a drier wine. Lower amounts of residual sugar. The sort of sweet, higher, more apple flavor. and then the medium's just in between. And so those are our kind of our flagship blends, if you will.
And then when I see one that says perfect, spelled with P-E-A-R, is that
Right.
pears?
Yes, that's pears. So perry is the proper term for fermented pear juice.
Oh, wow.
And so the perfect perry is a blend of Bartlett and Angio pears that we ferment just like we do the apples and provide a nice light, medium sweet, refreshing drink that's been extremely popular.
Wow. And when we were talking earlier, you did mention a hop rages. That's
Correct.
up here.
That's up there too. And that's where we start getting into what I almost like to call a crossover drink between beer and cider. So we take our cider and then we do like brewers do and we dry hop it. So we take actual hop flowers, put it in with the cider and let them steep in it for a period of time. And what it does is it infuses that cider with hop flavor, citrus notes, creates a real unique sort of product. And that's one of the great things about making cider in the Northwest is that people are open to trying new things like that.
Yeah, you've got some options.
Sure.
Well, if people wanted to come to this tasting room and try some out, where can they go to find what hours you'll have?
So our website's the best source, not only for the tasting room hours, but also where you can find our cider. We have interactive maps on the website. Put in your address, it'll show you exactly where the closest
nice.
bottle or the closest tap Portland cider is.
Well, this is a great place, and it is absolutely delicious, and it can give your taste buds a whole new experience on a whole new line of great beverages that are out there. You can go to gardentime.tv. We can click you over to their website, find out when they're open, come out and taste some, or find out where they sell it and go pick some up for yourself. Thank you so much, Jeff.
Thank you.